YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my review for BoonBoomger episode 15. So this is our last episode before our big Six Ranger debut, and it was another fine episode. I feel like there's definitely going to be people that like this more than I did. It was very much for me your by the numbers, like good monster episode where you have a monster of the week that actually is, well, good, and you have a ranger trying to defend them. There was a couple of things that subverted some of the tropes, but for the most part, it was just kind of a run-of-the-mill episode for me. In a lot of ways, one of the most generic episodes of the series so far, just because there has been elements around the structure of BoonBoomger that have kept things more unique. But let's talk about the positives first. First of all, nothing to do necessarily with this episode, but something I have mentioned throughout, I mean, other than the fact that the fight scenes and stuff are good, is I really love the score in this. I'm not talking about like the songs and stuff, but the score. There's some really epic sounding score in this that happens at the right moments when the team comes together, or there's like a really emotional or powerful moment for a character. It's like that da-da-da-da-da. That was brilliant singing. I should go for American Idol. I just really like the score in this. It just really adds to the personality of the series. Apparently my favorite word on this channel is personality. There's also, speaking of kind of those music playing at nice moments, there's a nice moment later on in the episode where Joe realizes he has to save the people even though it means hurting his friend, you know, the monster, his friend. And there's this really nice montage of the characters saving everyone, and it was just a really nice scene of just Sentai characters being heroic, and I really liked that moment. Also, when it comes to the sort of trope of the monster being a good monster, there was a couple things I liked about it. Like, in general, it was kind of funny that the villains specifically picked something that usually would be more menacing. Like, a lot of weeks they're doing like a printer or a toilet that becomes the monster, but then they're like, let's go for a dinosaur with a dinosaur fossil. And you think it's going to be the most badass thing ever, and it's not, and it's kind of funny that it subverts that idea, but also it's because apparently, like, the species of dinosaur is very timid, but I thought that was a funny beat. I also like that when Joe is defending the creature, you don't have the team immediately being like, we have to destroy him. Like, you have both Taya and Genba, and the team in general giving him a chance to prove his point, which was kind of nice, because usually in those cases, you have either one or all of the team being like, it's just a monster, bro, we gotta destroy it. So, I did like that they moved past that cliche a little bit. There's also just a really small funny moment when they're asleep, like they're out and hiding and they're asleep, and Joe wakes up after the monster had like rested on him all night, and he's like, I'm not sure if I actually got any rest or not. I'm like, man, that's relatable. Moving on to more of the negative and mixed aspects. Like I said, this was a pretty by-the-numbers episode. This is kind of one of those classic, I would say, top 5 Sentai scenarios you often see. Maybe not every season, but it's definitely one you get quite often. I don't think you get it quite as often as the body swap episode, but it just was very generic, and, you know, it was fine, but it's just, I don't know, I just wasn't that into it. It's kind of funny. I think it depends on the series. I don't know, maybe it's because I watch Toku every year so much and I have to cover it that when you run up to these cliches and these repeating patterns, it's more exhausting and I'm less into it, because I was thinking about how the most recent episode of Doctor Who as of this recording, which was Rogue in Season 1, was a very classic feeling Doctor Who episode after a couple more like Doctor Light unique episodes, and I really liked that episode because it felt like a classic Doctor Who episode, or I really like a Supernatural filler. Sometimes I do like those comfort generic episodes, but for whatever reason, just not with Sentai and Rider. I just happened to think about that. I'm like, this is a pretty like enjoyable generic Sentai filler, but I'm just not into it. But meanwhile, I really liked the classic feel of Rogue, which I just found to be funny. And to be honest with you, I still don't like Joe's character. It's definitely not a hatred like with Hotaro, or I don't dislike him as much as I disliked Kaguragi at the beginning of King Oger. You know, I brought that comparison up, and I've seen people say, like, why are you bringing those two characters? They're so different. Like, I'm not comparing them in terms of personality, just in terms of, I find it funny that 2 series in a row I haven't liked the Black Ranger so much. But in Kaguragi's case, eventually, once they explained his motivation more, and I really felt like I could see his point of view, he wound up being one of my favorites in a way. But with Joe, I feel like I just don't believe him. It's not like it's a terrible performance, but it just feels so by the numbers and generic and over the top. It feels disingenuous to me personally. That's just gonna hit different for everyone else. I'm sure there's gonna be people that's like, oh, he cried and it was really emotional, how could you say that? But for me, it just feels disingenuous, and all I could think about during this episode, and once I had this thought, I couldn't stop thinking about it, was the RDC World videos like about anime tropes, and thinking about the one where it's like how fast anime characters build friendships, and it shows like 2 people passing each other on the street like, hey, and then 5 minutes later, the person he passed on the street is killed, and he's like, he was my best friend! That's what this episode felt like, and then it made it more funny to me than anything when he's like, I have to destroy you! I'm like, you've known this dude 5 minutes, it's just an evil creature anyway, like, I don't know. It was just melodramatic is the word, and I just wasn't into it. I'm still not into his character, and just every time I see him I think about how I don't like his character and the memory of his goddamn fanny pack. But overall, guys, I mean, it was a fine episode. It wasn't really negative or bad, it was just kind of generic. I'm really glad we're getting the Sixth Ranger next week to shake things up. Like I said in the past videos, I've still been enjoying the series, but that kind of new Sentai excitement's worn off a little bit, and I'm looking for something to be happening. And it was a bit weird that, like I mentioned 2 weeks ago or so, I was like, oh, this is the end of the next arc, or the first arc, now we're starting a new arc, and they've just kind of been treading water until the Sixth Ranger. I imagine that after the Sixth Ranger debut settles in, we'll kind of settle back into the status quo of filler, but I hope it shakes things up a little bit more, as he looks like a character that might shake things up. But what did you guys think of the episode? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.